What's the word, Bulls fans? Welcome into a new edition of the By the Hornets podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand, so find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. You know who we are. Cam Smith rocking with you. Drew Stevens of the Bigs rocking with you. We're about to have another in-depth conversation on this Bulls team because a lot has transpired since you last heard us for the By the Hornets podcast last week. January 16th was our last recording. Me and Casey Johnson touched on some things with this Bulls team that was getting very dire. And we would think that they would have learned their lesson and would have been able to bounce back against the Charlotte Hornets, which they had Friday night inside the United Center, but it was not that. You had LaMelo Ball in the building. You had Lonzo Ball in the building, playing against each other for the first time in, I believe, 2 to 3 years. So that was good to see the Ball brothers going back and forth on the court. And you had the middle brother, LiAngelo Jello, there sitting courtside in a super green Don Magic Wand type green outfit. And if you're from Chicago and you just know, you know who Don Magic Wand is, green and gold. I'm not going to say the rest because, you know, we got sponsors and we don't want to have anybody coming after us. But he was in his best dressed Don Magic Wand fit with all the green and the bedazzled green Scully on. So he was in attendance watching his brothers compete on the court, which was pretty cool, seeing all three Ball brothers just being able to just relish and just them doing great things, man, in their respective fields. So it was great to see that. Bulls finished that game with a loss. You go on the road. It ended their 5-game homestand. The Bulls won one of those 5 home games. Go on the road against the Portland Trail Blazers. And it was kind of like, you know, even though it's a different location, it was still the same thing with this Bulls team where defensively they had their issues. Obviously, on the glass, something that they really harping on, especially Nikola Vucevic, and wanted this team to have better efforts, including himself on the glass. It just wasn't that. DeAndre Ayton was – I hate to say this, Drew, because I hate this nickname with DeAndre Ayton and him giving his own.
Don't say it.
I got to do it because some people out there are like, okay, well, what is his nickname, Cam? Well, if you're in the wanting to know, it is dominating. And that nickname was dominating for DeAndre Ayton, a very strong double-double for him on the night. Scoot Henderson flirted with a triple-double. Jeremy Grant. There was a lot of players from showed up and showed out against this Bulls team. So you had a team, Drew, going into Monday night's game against the Clippers that lost 5 straight. You're facing off against the Clippers, who did not have Kawhi Leonard. He was out for the ball game, but still, this is a Clippers team that have won 4 straight, and you're looking at just the firepower that they have offensively in their leading scorer, Norman Powell, who's averaging 23 a game, which is not a surprise, but it's like, okay, Norman Powell is really stepping into that Paul George role that was left vacant with PG moving on and going to the Philadelphia 76ers. So, Drew, with that said, the Bulls got to win. And really a convincing win against the Clippers and won it by double digits and held them to 99 points. So recapping from what we had from the last pod to where we stand right now as we record this pod on January 22nd. It is a Wednesday night. The Bulls have the Golden State Warriors in the Bay at Chase Center tomorrow night with a very late tip, local time, 9 p.m. time zones. So, Drew, what are your thoughts on just what we've seen from this team recently?
Disappointing homestand, to say the least. Them going 1-4 on it. You and Casey talked about the opportunity that was before them to not only kind of correct their home record and get that back where they got more wins and losses, but also just to possibly get to 500 on the season or above. And we know that this is something that this team has struggled with pretty consistently the last few seasons. And for them to not be able to take advantage of the schedule that was in front of them, it was pretty disappointing. I'm not going to say, you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think that the loss to New Orleans, because they had they had Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum played, Trey Murphy III was there, DeJounte Murray was in. So I didn't really look at that loss as one that was as bad as some other people did, but the loss to the Hawks, where the Hawks just had so many people missing from that team. And even though, you know, when the stars are out, guys come in and it's an opportunity for them to show the coaches what they're made of, for them to try to earn some minutes or just to get tape on themselves for other teams around the league. It still was like, man, you guys really laid an egg against an Atlanta Hawks team that almost kind of served a victory up for you guys, man, with so many people that they had out from their starting lineup and just their main scorers. And then to lose to the Hornets, man, the ball versus ball bowl. Now that series is tied 2-2. I mean, kind of is what it is, man. LaMelo had a fantastic game. He is not shy whatsoever. That dude is going to put them up, make or miss, man. He's going to keep them. He's going to keep throwing them up there. But they did obviously take advantage of a Clippers team that was on second night of a back-to-back, also missing some of their key players. Zach LaVine continues to just ball out. Coming into tonight as we record right now, only Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Anthony Edwards have averaged more points since the start of the year than Zach LaVine. He's playing outstanding basketball. There's still some times where he kind of, that Zach is one of the best tough shot makers in the league. Right. And it's almost like if it's not a tough shot or a tough position, he don't want any parts of it. But that's just that's Zach's game, man. He makes the tough things look easy. But sometimes you wish that maybe he would take kind of the free cheese that sometimes presents itself, whether it's coming off a screen and lifting up right away rather than letting the defense get back in front of him and then trying to cook the D. But Zach is Zach. He, like I said, he does so many things on a basketball court, and he makes it look just so easy, so smooth with it. It's like he hardly breaks a sweat. But they took advantage of the Clippers, moving on to the Golden State Warriors. Obviously, we're pushing closer to the trade deadline, so a lot of intrigue there in terms of what this team is going to look like after February 6th. So the storylines continue. I wouldn't say that this last stretch of games has changed my mind at all on what I think should happen or what I would like to see happen, but we have to see what actually comes to pass here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, when you look at the last three games for the Bulls, and I gotta apologize for my man Vucevic, man, for not bringing up his 40 piece that he gave against the Charlotte Hornets, 40 points and 13 rebounds, despite that loss in that situation. In the final possession for the Bulls, where they had three opportunities, Vucevic with a great look from three. Zach had a chance to tie the ball game. Io crashed the offensive glass, had a chance to tie the ball game, but it just wasn't meant to be. You talk about Zach and just his ability to make those tough shots. 35 points against the Clippers, and it felt like to me watching that game and seeing the skid that the Bulls are on, Zach, and I'm sure he felt this after every loss for this Bulls team because he's a competitor. But when you've strung together 5 straight losses, it felt like Zach was like, all right, cool. We've lost 5 straight. We're not losing 6 straight. Like if I have to put the team on my back, which he did in LA and into a dome, then that's what I got. Did that, and the Bulls were able to get that win. So you have a situation with this group. It's currently constructed. And it's more so for me, I want to look at next week possibly to see if things change, but it's also almost on a day-to-day basis as you start to hear some of these reports come out on certain guys and what their trade value is. Obviously with Shams Charania of ESPN with the story of the Golden State Warriors looking at Nikola Vucevic and trying to add his services. I think you can't turn a blind eye to what the Phoenix Suns are doing and getting those 3 first-round picks in the deal. I'm blanking on who the team with Utah, with the deal with them and getting 3 first-round picks and trying to create some room so where they can deal at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline to possibly maybe get a Jimmy Butler. I don't think that works because just contract and book-wise are really strapped when Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and, of course, Bradley Beal still on their books, and I'm not sure if Bradley Beal is a part of that trade. If they do it with the Miami Heat, if Pat Riley even wants to send Jimmy Butler to Phoenix to help out the Phoenix Suns, because we know how that situation is going down in Miami with the Godfather and Jimmy G, is that they're really like button heads right now as Jimmy has been suspended 2 more games because he missed a team flight, and he's just trying to force his way out of Miami, and just everything leads to that. So you have a Phoenix Suns team that needs front court help. They need scoring in the front court. And I'm not talking of just at the 4 position because we know Kevin Durant can make up for 3 or 4 guys scoring the basketball. But when it comes to Jusuf Nurkic, who is a solid big, but you want to have, as much as Phoenix wants to have a free-flowing offense. You're not able to do that in situations with Nurkic on the floor. So I think if Vooch is put in that position, it makes it even tougher for a defense to deal with a shooter like Vooch, who's shooting over 40% and averaging 20 points and 10 rebounds. Throw in Kevin Durant, throw in Devin Booker, and now you're looking at an even more potent bench group if you bring Nurkic off the bench along with Bradley Beal and a couple other pieces that they have. So that's what I look. I look at also Golden State. And it's going to be a essential, just kind of like, hey, this is what you could get if you trade for me, with the Bulls facing off against the Warriors tomorrow night. And chase how Golden State plays, and you know it's going to be up and down. It feels like that game and that matchup is tailored to Vooch, really showcasing what he does best, and that's just be a scorer at all three levels. Golden State needs a scorer at that front court position. They need a lot of different things, and rebounding is not one of them, because Warriors are one of the better teams in the NBA when it comes to rebounding the basketball. We know what they are in terms of shooting threes, but still percentage-wise around the middle of the pack of the league. But Vooch could be a piece for them to help them, and they're trying to get that help, especially with Steph Curry. So you have some situations where if you're Arturas Karnisovas, Mark Eversley, you're on the phone, you're in these kind of conversations and trying to figure out what works best for your team. Do you want to bring players back? Do you want to bring picks back? And so they have to make that decision, and it's a daily situation for them. So that's what I'm looking forward to, I think, and not looking forward to, I should say, let me correct myself. On a day-to-day basis, that's what I'm intrigued about with this Bulls team, of not if they make a move, but when they make a move. And so that's where my focus is going as we get closer to the February 6th trade deadline.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a little bit more optimism than I do. I'm still kind of on if, are they going to make a move? This is the fourth trade deadline that AK and Mark Eversley have presided over.
Yeah.
We saw the past three that they ended up not making moves because they felt like they didn't have anything out there that, would be worth their while. To see what direction they choose to go right now will be fascinating. Or if they do end up standing pat for a fourth straight trade deadline. Vooch just seemed to have some suitors, like you mentioned, Golden State Warriors. That seems to be kind of the hottest thing. I'm kind of going where the smoke is, and that seems to be the number one team that's mentioned. It's a little weird in Golden State because I know Steve Kerr and Draymond Green and Steph Curry have come out and talked about how they don't want the front office to mortgage the future for the present and sell off draft picks, and they want to it seems like they want to do this thing themselves without any outside help. And while I guess that's admirable and it could also just be talk, you got those caliber of players on your team who have been in your system, who have won championships for your city and your franchise. You feel like you need to continue to build out the roster around them and give those guys the best chance possible to try to contend.
Right.
If not, then why not try to move them? Like you said, Vooch would be a nice piece for them, it seems like. I don't know if he will, catapult them to championship status, but he would make them more of a contender than what they are right now. I think that in the position that the Bulls are, we talked about this since the inception of the By the Horns podcast. I think they're a team that needs to kind of get off some salaries, get off some players, kind of pick a lane and direction here. If they're not going to be able to trade Zach LaVine, if the best deal that's out there for them is that deal we heard about from The Athletic a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, involving Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji, if that's not something they want to do, which I don't think that is something they should do, then okay, hold on to that. And if you are so inclined that you still want to try to trade him, wait until the summertime when he has one less year on his deal. Teams are a lot more flexible in what they can and cannot do. But you have to be able to pivot to some of these other guys. Vooch be on his last year's deal next year. I don't think that this is a team that should be gunning for play-in situations year after year. And that's what we've seen them be to this point. So if you're not going to move Zach, I would like to see this team pivot to trying to find a new home for Nikola Vucevic. If not, Torrey Craig or Javon Carter, two veterans who I think could help contending teams. it's all about, what can you get for those guys in return? What are you comfortable getting? Obviously, Torrey Craig is on an expiring deal. I would hate for 2:01 p.m. to come on February 6th and Torrey Craig to still be a part of this roster, knowing last year a team was offering Andre Drummond or offering this front office multiple second-round picks for Andre Drummond, didn't end up doing that deal, obviously. Tried to make some hay in the play-in tournament. That didn't work out. And then that same team winded up getting Andre Drummond anyway. So I think it's another opportunity for this front office, AK specifically, to learn or show that he's learned from his mistakes in different ways. Even trying to see what maybe he can get for Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White. Again, I've said this time and time again, I would hate to see those guys go. They've been ingrained into this system. They've done a lot for this team. Mm-hmm. They have improved. They have developed. But because of the contracts they're on, it behooves this front office to use that potentially to see what you can bring back in terms of assets. They're not very asset rich as it is right now. Those guys are on cheap deals. It's going to be very unlikely that they'll extend, which means they could go into the summer of 26 as unrestricted free agents. And at that point, who's to say that Kobe White will want to come back to this situation where there is no guarantee that he'll be in any better position to contend for a championship or even a second round appearance in the playoffs than this team is right now, So it's just a lot of questions that need to be answered, directions that need to be picked, lessons that need to be learned from, and it's coming. It's coming, and it's getting here before we know it.
And we'll see if they're going to answer that question about just being in the middle. And we've heard from Billy Donovan, this front office, of not being satisfied for multiple years, making the plan. Like, they want better. They know that the Bulls fans, the city of Chicago, deserves better. So when you have that idea of forward movement and building for the future, that's where I would love to understand what the thought process is, and maybe we'll find that out. And if he explains that to us, Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley, if they do decide to make moves. But it's, what moves do they make? Do they just say, hey, you know what, we're going to move and try to move off of Zach's deal? Zach is a player. Vooch's deal, Vooch is a player. But along with Lonzo Ball, along with Torrey Craig, along with Javon Carter, along with possibly, when you throw in a name like Josh Giddey, understanding what the rumor reports of what he's trying to seek as a restricted free agent going into the offseason. So you have a lot of things that you have to mull over and have deep conversations about, of one, who fits the future of this franchise. I think Ayo and Kobe are two guys that fit the future of this franchise. I could be wrong, and we could see both of those guys be moved, but CHSN Bulls insider Casey Johnson, we know, has said this from the beginning of the season, that the Bulls are open for business. And when you have that type of energy and teams know that, well, no player is really untouchable. I mean, we think the one player that is untouchable would be, like, you're not going to draft him 11 overall in this draft and trade him away. So that's the thing for this group and this front office, of what direction do they want to go? Do they want to just say, you know what, we want to move towards the future. Let's rip this Band-Aid off. Let's move off of Zach. Let's move off of Vooch. Let's move off of Lonzo, possibly Torrey Craig, possibly Javon Carter, possibly Josh Giddey, see what we can get back in return, get as much capital and assets as we can to build towards the future. And so that's what, again, I'm really intrigued to see how they operate with the days heading to the week of February 6th. I believe if we get to February 6th and we don't see any movement in terms of trades with this front office and this team, you're looking at a group possibly that will stand pat and say, all right, well, we're going to ride it out with Vooch, ride it out with Zach, see if we can get better offers or better situations for our future when we get to the offseason with both of those guys being on the last year of their deals. So it's a lot of, as you said, questions that need to be answered from this front office. maybe we see that as we move forward to February 6th, because looking at the Bulls' schedule, as we mentioned, Golden State Warriors tomorrow night as we record this pod on January 22nd, 2025 on a Wednesday night. Then you have the 76ers back at home on Saturday. You have the Nuggets on Monday back at home, and then you hit the road again for 3 straight against the Celtics, Raptors, Pistons, and then a couple final games before that February 6th trade deadline against the Miami Heat and the Minnesota Timberwolves. So what version and what will this Bulls team look like before February 6th, after February 6th? Those are the questions that we, as people in the media, as Bulls fans, want to know how they'll answer this question and what this team will look like. So a lot of intrigue with that, as I mentioned. We can run ourselves crazy on the possible scenarios of where what player can go and, you know, who you can get back or what you can get back. Ultimately, it's up to Arturas Karnisovas, Mark Eversley, this Bulls front office. Obviously, Billy Donovan will be made aware of what this front office will do with their moves. But we just got to have to play the waiting game right now. But what we can look forward to for sure is Bulls basketball and what they can do and try and see if they can put together back-to-back wins. As we mentioned, they beat the Clippers on Monday night. They have the Golden State Warriors tomorrow night. And it'll be good for Matas Buzelis, Drew, to get familiar with Chase-time NBA pro playing inside at Chase Center, because Matas will become the 5th Bulls player to participate in an NBA slam dunk contest. So you've had, shout out to the OG in Orlando, Woolridge, who was in the dunk contest back in the 80s with the gold chain. Like Orlando Woolridge, you need to look up some highlights if you haven't. I'm not talking to you, Drew. Just anybody watching us on YouTube, on the Chicago Sports Network YouTube page, or if you're listening to us wherever you get your pods, go ahead and type in Orlando Woolridge dunk contest highlights, or just Orlando Woolridge in general, and see those highlights. He definitely was able to get some bodies and did some things in the dunk contest. But you throw in Michael Jordan, obviously Zach LaVine. You have so many other guys, Scottie Pippen, another name as well. So as I mentioned, Matas Buzelis becomes the 5th Bulls player in franchise history to participate in the dunk contest. And honestly, Drew, from what we've seen in warmups, gameplay, you can get a taste of Matas's athleticism. He hasn't fully caught that real body yet. When he does, people will be like, okay, yeah, we understand why he was in the dunk contest or why he won the dunk contest, because Matas has some things in his bag.
He definitely does. When this season started, I was already like, man, Matas has too much lift, too much bravado, too much power. Like, really, he really attacks the rim, whether it be warm-ups or on the dunks that we've seen him pull off in the game. He has too much of that not to want to be in the dunk contest. He's been asked kind of in passing multiple times, hey, you gonna do the dunk contest? And he would always respond with, we'll see. Obviously, we got that question answered for us the last couple of days. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Him and Stephon Castle, another fellow rookie from San Antonio. Yeah. Those are the 2 names we've heard so far. So I believe they got 2 more guys they're going to have to get in there. But Matas has got some stuff, man. And I was a little bit worried. I've been worried. I've been texting people like, man, he has the lift. He has the power. I'm not sure if he has the creativity. But even if he doesn't have like a dunk that we've never seen before, he's so smooth, like his frame, because he's like a little bit slight of build and long like that. I think he can make these dunks look aesthetically pleasing, just in and of himself, just because of the way that he's built, the way that he dunks.
Doubt.
Like, yeah,
no doubt. I mean, he's 6'10" with athleticism. Yeah. And also, when it comes to creativity, he has a teammate and some dude named Zach LaVine that I think not only won one, but went back-to-back,
no doubt,
in NBA slam dunk contest. So he can lean on Zach a little bit, man. Maybe bring out Zach for a lob, which would be a great look. So I think for Matas, he'll be able to put on a show. You got to have some things in your bag, especially when you have the charisma and the bravado that Matas brings. And then also, I've always noticed this about Matas, but that basketball tattoo that he has on his leg, like the old school basketball right on the rim with the basketball net, like, the old school chains that you should get, and people probably still rock them. I know my pop still has that chain with the basketball right on the rim with the net. Like that's tatted on Matas's leg. So you're talking about in this day and age, like I don't know if he has other tattoos, but to have that on your leg and that version of a basketball and a hoop is like, okay, you really a different type of dude. You it feels like you cut from that cloth.
Nah, no doubt. No doubt. I'm looking forward to it, man. Now, Stephon Castle's got some stuff, too. He's got a bag, too.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what those two pull off, whoever the next two participants will be. But Matas
you know what? It don't matter. It don't matter who the next participants are. It don't matter. Matas got it. He got it locked up. He got it locked up.
Hey, Matas said he got to leave with something. He leaving his rookie year with something.
Hey. Matas say he from around the way. I'm leaving him from something. No doubt. But it'll be good to see Matas out there in the Bay for All-Star Weekend over at the Chase Center, man. I believe this is going to be the first NBA All-Star Weekend and dunk contest in the Bay Area since the iconic and classic Vince Carter dunk contest in 2000. So I just vividly remember that as a kid. My brother was in college. He missed it, so I had to record it on VCR. Yeah, I'm that old. I'm not going to say old. I'm that seasoned. Let me correct myself. I'm that seasoned to remember when you had to VCR record certain things on TV to watch it back. You didn't have DVR or anything like that, but just that's the energy that Matas is walking into with just that environment. I know it's not the Oracle. It's not that because that's where that dunk contest was held, but still, it's some residue around in that area somewhere. I know Oakland, San Francisco, two different places, but still, I'm just trying to conjure up all the good vibes for Matas when he competes in the dunk contest.
No doubt. I gotta speak my piece on one thing.
Okay.
People do not give enough credit for the dunks that T-Mac and Steve Francis pulled off in the contest too. Like Vince was just so incredible with what he was doing. He made those two guys' dunks look less than, but those two guys were doing some stuff too, man. They had bounce. Steve Francis was doing some incredible things, but yeah, man, I got to put some respect on the other two guys in that dunk contest for real.
Man, T-Mac for sure going up against his cousin was classy, but also just talking about aesthetically pleasing. Like it's always great to see guards and smaller guys getting a dunk contest. Yeah. Steve Francis, he couldn't even palm the basketball, but that's just made it even better with him just getting it in. And he was just like having fun, like skipping around after dunks and everything. So he knew he was going up against a Titan and a great one in Vince Carter, but it's Steve Francis, man. Like, you know, he's cut from that. Speaking of guys that's cut from that, he's definitely cut from that. So it was a classic dunk contest. Now, me and Drew are not saying on the By the Horns podcast, presented by Toyota, that this upcoming dunk contest in the Bay Area will be similar to what we saw in Oakland back in 2000. Do not try and do this. We do not want. I know how y'all do on social media and y'all like to cut and edit all that stuff. We're not doing that. What we're saying is we could be in for a show with 6'10" Matas Buzelis really letting his wings spread in the dunk contest and doing some things. All right, so again, Bulls have the Golden State Warriors tomorrow night, looking to make it back-to-back wins. And I don't know, Drew, it's a fluid situation. We could see a different Bulls team maybe after the Golden State game or as we finish up the rest of these games before the February 6th trade deadline. But know that we'll be tapped into it. Of course, our guy, Bulls insider Casey Johnson, will be tapped in as he always is. Casey is one of the best in the business. You know I say that all the time. But that will do it for this edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. That's my guy, Drew Stevens of the Bigs. I'm Cam Smith. Thank you for tapping in with us. We'll see everybody soon.